Why do great powers always fall? Why do empires that seem invincible crumble before seemingly weaker adversaries? The story I'm going to tell today will completely change your perspective on power and technology, and will make you rethink everything you believe about military superiority. Imagine a civilization so advanced that it could destroy entire planets with a single shot. An empire that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years, viewing other species as little more than insects. Now imagine that same empire being completely annihilated in a single day, not by superior technology, not by a secret weapon, but by something as basic as stones. This is the story of how humanity, considered primitive and backward, turned its own inferiority into the greatest strategic advantage ever seen in the history of the Milky Way. A story that proves that sometimes the simplest solution is the deadliest, and that arrogance can be the greatest weakness of any civilization. What you're about to discover isn't just another science fiction tale. It's a lesson in creativity, determination, and the art of turning disadvantage into power. Get ready to learn about the Corsair's Gambit, the strategy that forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy. In the vast Milky Way, where ancient civilizations danced the eternal ballet of power, humanity was seen as little more than an anthropological curiosity. Among the stars that dotted the black canvas of the cosmos, our species was barely a footnote in the great galactic encyclopedia. The Votar Ascendancy, a civilization that measured its legacy in millennia, watched our technological rise with the same interest a biologist might show a colony of bacteria, a mix of scientific curiosity and evolutionary disdain. The Votar, with their fusion and antimatter technology, their energy shields that defied the known laws of physics, couldn't comprehend how such a primitive species had survived for so long. Supreme Admiral KR, a veteran of countless military campaigns, commanded his flagship with the unshakable confidence of someone who had witnessed the fall of empires. From the bridge of the imposing, ravaging flame, he studied reports about Earth with a sneer on his reptilian snout. The humans, or dirtlings as he preferred to call them with contempt, still relied on chemical fuel for their spacecraft. Their most advanced weapons barely scratched the most basic shields of the Votar fleet. To KR, it was almost embarrassing to have to divert military resources to deal with such an insignificant threat. The Jaliyah Republic, a confederation of species that had long resisted the imperial advance of the Votar, had made what KR considered their gravest mistake: accepting humanity as an ally. In his tactical analyses, he couldn't understand the logic behind this decision. It was as if a galactic empire decided to form a military alliance with a tribe of hunter-gatherers. The Votar's arrogance prevented them from seeing beyond appearances, from realizing that there might be more to the Jaliyah's choice than mere interstellar charity. In the depths of space, where war was waged with surgical precision and calculated destruction, the human fleet seemed like a collection of improvised toys. Their ships, built with technology considered obsolete for millennia, moved through the void like disoriented insects. KR watched their maneuvers on high-resolution tactical screens, noting patterns that seemed chaotic and unpredictable. But there was something about the seemingly random movements that itched uncomfortably in his military mind, a feeling that something was eluding him. Vice Admiral Stree Rexus, second in command of the 3rd Extermination Fleet, was the first to notice the inconsistencies. In his reports, he pointed out details that seemed insignificant in isolation, but formed an intriguing pattern when analyzed together. Why were the humans concentrating so much activity in the asteroid belt? Why did their communications seem so well coordinated for a technologically backward species? And more importantly, why hadn't the Jaliyah, known for their technological superiority, provided more advanced equipment to their new allies? In the vastness of the cosmos, where war was as constant as the background radiation, the Votar were about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimation. As KR savored his inevitable victory in advance, humanity was preparing to demonstrate that sometimes true superiority isn't about the technology you possess, but the creativity with which you use what's at your disposal. In the silence of space, where no one can hear your war cries, A storm was brewing. A storm made not of plasma and antimatter, but of something far more primitive and, ironically, far more lethal. Time passed like a cosmic hourglass, and each grain of space dust that fell brought the moment of inevitable confrontation closer. In the command rooms, both human and Votar, strategies were drawn and redrawn, but only one side truly understood the nature of what was to come. Galactic warfare was about to gain a new chapter, and humanity, this primitive and insignificant species, was about to teach a lesson that would echo through the millennia. Never underestimate those who still have something to prove. The tension in the vacuum of space was palpable as the Votar fleet emerged at the edge of the solar system, their armored ships gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. Supreme Admiral KR contemplated the imminent destruction of humanity with the same expression a predator has when observing its cornered prey. From the bridge of the ravaging flame, a space fortress of colossal proportions stretching 5,000 kilometers long, he admired the deadly ballet about to begin. The energy shields of his flagship emitted a bluish glow that seemed to defy the very laws of physics, an ostentatious display of the Empire's technological might. The communications between the human fleet ships seemed chaotic to Votar sensors, a tangle of primitive signals that only reinforced KR's view of the Dirtling's inferiority. However, there was something about the arrangement of the human forces that stirred a subtle unease in his military mind. The human ships, despite their apparent technological simplicity, maintained precise formations, like pieces of a cosmic puzzle he couldn't fully decipher. The asteroid belt, in particular, buzzed with activity that his sensors couldn't properly interpret. When the face of Admiral Stephen Corsair appeared on the Ravaging Flame's communication screens, KR expected to see fear in the human commander's eyes. Instead, he was met with a disconcerting calm, a serenity that seemed completely out of place in the face of the Votar extermination force. The human's voice, firm and controlled, echoed across the bridge. "You are in human territory. Identify yourself and state your intentions." The simplicity of the demand, its implicit audacity, drew nervous laughter from the Votar officers. How could such a primitive species dare make demands of a millennia-old civilization? Vice Admiral Stree Rexus, known for his almost pathological caution, did not share in his comrades' amusement. His reptilian eyes obsessively studied the movement patterns of the human fleet, trying to understand the logic behind what seemed, at first glance, like a suicidal strategy. Why hadn't the humans received advanced technology from their Jalea allies? Why were so many of their ships positioned near the asteroid belt? And most intriguingly, why did Admiral Corsair seem so confident in the face of a force that could reduce his planet to cosmic dust? KR's response to the human demand was laden with millennia-old arrogance. "I am Supreme Admiral KR of the Votar Ascendancy. My intention? Extermination." He savored every syllable, waiting to see the exact moment when fear would shatter the human commander's mask of composure. But Corsair merely nodded slightly, as if he had just received trivial weather information. "This is your only warning, Admiral. Withdraw now." The simplicity of the threat, coming from a species that still relied on chemical propulsion, was almost comical. Almost. In the depths of space where war was waged with the precision of cosmic surgery, something began to move. The Votar fleet's sensors picked up strange readings from the asteroid belt, but the automatic filters dismissed them as natural interference. After all, what could humans possibly do with a bunch of space rocks? The Votar's antimatter technology and energy shields were invulnerable to anything a primitive species could conceive. Or so they thought. The silence that preceded the battle was like the calm before a cosmic storm. As KR prepared his fleet for what he considered an easy victory, humanity prepared to demonstrate why creativity and determination can be deadlier weapons than the most advanced technology. In the vast theater of galactic warfare, where ancient civilizations danced the dance of mutual destruction, a new force was about to take the stage, a force that would forever change the understanding of what it means to be primitive. The First shot of the battle cut through the vacuum of space like a bolt of plasma, marking the beginning of what the Votar expected to be a quick demonstration of technological superiority. The human fleet responded with surprising precision, their kinetic projectiles finding specific weak points in the enemy ship's energy shields. For a race supposedly still learning the basics of space warfare, their attacks revealed a disturbing knowledge of Votar vulnerabilities. Supreme Admiral KR watched the deadly dance with a mix of irritation and growing curiosity. Deep within the asteroid belt, something moved in the shadows cast by the distant sun. The ravaging flame's sensors picked up enigmatic readings, energy patterns that seemed to defy the logic of the galaxy's most advanced detection systems. Vice Admiral Stry Rexus, always attentive to details others overlooked, began to notice a troubling pattern. The humans weren't actually trying to win the frontal battle. Every maneuver, every shot, every intercepted communication seemed part of an elaborate dance of distraction. It was when the first alerts began to sound on the flagship's bridge. Massive objects were moving in space, emerging from the shadows of the asteroid belt like leviathans awakening from a millennia-long slumber. Votar technicians scrambled to adjust their senses, initially convinced there must be some kind of reading error. After all, it was impossible for simple space rocks to be moving at speeds that defied the known laws of physics. But there was no error in the readings. Humanity had turned the asteroids themselves into weapons. Horror began to spread across the bridge as the calculations came in. Each of those asteroids, some over 1,500 kilometers in diameter, was being propelled by a combination of high-powered fusion engines. Their speed had already surpassed 20% of the speed of light and was still increasing. The Votar's energy shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and conventional projectiles, had never been conceived to withstand the impact of planetary masses traveling at relativistic speeds. The humans' primitive weapon was, ironically, the most advanced form of destruction the Votar fleet had ever encountered. "They're throwing rocks at us!" KR shouted, his voice a mix of disbelief and rage as he watched the asteroids approach. But they weren't just rocks. Each of those improvised projectiles was equipped with Jalia technology, including energy, shields that protected them from the Votar's desperate counterattacks. The Jalia Republic hadn't provided advanced weapons to the humans, because humanity had already conceived something far more devastating: the perfect combination of brutal simplicity and technological ingenuity. The primitives had turned the entire asteroid belt into a massive weapon of mass destruction. The Votar battleships, with all their firepower and millennia-old technology, were like sandcastles before an inevitable wave. Their enormous size, once a source of pride and a demonstration of power, now made them impossible targets to miss. Basic physics, the very same physics the Votar considered too primitive to be relevant in modern warfare, was about to teach them a brutal lesson in arrogance. There was no possible evasive maneuver, no technology capable of stopping the brute force of small planets being used as relativistic projectiles. On the ravaging flame's main screen, Admiral Corsair's face reappeared, his expression still maintaining that disconcerting calm that had so irritated KR at the start of the battle. "You called us primitive," he said, his voice carrying a note of irony that chilled the Votar commander's blood. "Now you'll learn why, sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most effective." The humans' plan, in all its brutal simplicity, was about to rewrite the manuals of galactic warfare. In the vast theater of the cosmos, where ancient civilizations fought with antimatter weapons and energy shields, humanity had chosen to win using the most basic of principles. If something big enough hits something else with enough speed, nothing survives the impact. The vacuum of space erupted in a spectacle of light as the Votar fleet's first antimatter torpedoes found their targets. Thousands of detonations lit up the darkness like artificial stars, each explosion carrying enough energy to vaporize a continent. It was the pinnacle of military technology, the pride of a civilization that had mastered the most destructive forces in the universe. But against the asteroids equipped with Jalia shields, all that power was like throwing pebbles at a mountain. The shields absorbed the energy from the explosions, converting it into more momentum for the gigantic improvised projectiles. The first impact was like witnessing the birth of a new star, an asteroid only 300 kilometers in diameter, struck a Votar cruiser traveling at 1/5 the speed of light. The kinetic energy released at the moment of impact was greater than the explosion of all nuclear weapons ever created by humanity combined. The cruiser, a masterpiece of galactic military engineering, simply ceased to exist, transformed into a field of debris expanding like a new nebula in space. There was no time for evacuation, no chance of survival. Basic physics had triumphed over thousands of years of technological development. On the bridge of the ravaging flame, Supreme Admiral KR watched in horror as his invincible fleet was systematically destroyed. Each impact was a brutal demonstration of human creativity, a lesson in how to turn an apparent disadvantage into a devastating advantage. The Votar battleships, space giants protected by the most advanced shields ever created, were being torn apart by what they despised most: primitive technology. The irony of the situation was not lost on the officers who still retained enough sanity to appreciate it. Communications between the Votar ships turned into a chorus of panic and despair. Contradictory orders were shouted, escape plans were improvised and abandoned in the same instant. The military discipline of millennia disintegrated in the face of a tactic no war manual had ever predicted. How do you fight an enemy that has turned an entire solar system into a weapon? The Votar had prepared to face advanced technology, but they were being defeated by the most basic application of the laws of motion: force equals mass times acceleration. A larger asteroid, nearly 1,000 kilometers in diameter, struck the ravaging flame on its right flank. The energy shields, designed to withstand any known weapon, failed instantly under the brute force of the impact. Critical systems collapsed in cascading failure, and the massive ship began to break apart like a cosmic house of cards. KR, in his final moment of clarity, finally understood Admiral Corsair's calm smile. The humans had never needed advanced technology. They had something far more valuable: the ability to think outside established patterns. How? KR's voice trembled as he made his final transmission to Corsair. How did you think of this? The human commander's reply came with that same irritating calm that now seemed even more insulting. We're engineers, Admiral. When all you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. And when all you have is an asteroid belt. The transmission was cut off by another devastating impact. The last thing KR saw was Corsair's satisfied smile. A smile that carried a clear message. Never underestimate a species still fighting to prove its place in the cosmos. In the darkness of space, where the battle was rapidly turning into a massacre, the lesson was being written in fire and destruction. True superiority lies not in the technology you possess, but in the creativity with which you use what's at your disposal. Humanity, this primitive species that still threw rocks, had found a way to turn its own technological limitations into its greatest advantage. As the last remnants of the once proud Votar fleet scattered across the solar system, a new truth was established in the galaxy. Sometimes, the simplest solutions are the deadliest. In the final moments of the battle, as he watched the last debris of the ravaging flame disperse into the void, Supreme Admiral KR had his final epiphany. The humans' plan wasn't just about destroying his fleet. It was part of a much larger strategy. In his last seconds of life, he accessed the fleet's emergency communications and discovered the terrifying truth. Similar reports were coming in from all corners of the galaxy. The Votar Empire wasn't just losing a battle, it was being systematically exterminated in a series of carefully coordinated ambushes. The Jalia Republic had planned everything meticulously. For years, they had studied humanity, not looking for technological advancement, but for something far more valuable: tactical creativity. While the Votar mocked the primitive Earthlings, the Jalia recognized in them something unique, a species that turned limitations into advantages, that saw opportunities where others saw only obstacles. In every star system where humans were called to help, they applied the same basic principle, using the local environment as a weapon. In the Proxima system, the human fleet lured the Votar into a manipulated radiation field. In Tau Ceti, They used the planet's own moons as projectiles. In the Sirius system, they turned a solar storm into a deadly trap. The genius of the plan lay in its simplicity. Each battle seemed isolated, a local tactical decision, but all were part of a larger strategy. The humans' famous Murphy's Law had become a self-fulfilling prophecy for the Votar. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong, especially when your enemies have planned every aspect of that failure. Admiral Corsair, standing on the bridge of his relatively primitive ship, watched the data coming in from across the galaxy with contained satisfaction. The maneuver that would come to be known as the Corsair's Gambit wasn't just a battle tactic. It was a revolution in space warfare. The humans had proven that superior technology doesn't always guarantee victory. In just a few hours, the most powerful empire in the Milky Way had been reduced to rubble by a species they had considered little more than space barbarians. In the command rooms of the Jalia Republic, strategists watched with admiration as the plan was executed flawlessly. They had provided the shield technology, yes, but it was the humans who turned that single advantage into a series of devastating victories. Human creativity combined with Jalia knowledge proved to be an unbeatable combination. On every battlefield, the same story repeated itself. The Votar, confident in their technological superiority, fell into traps that seemed too simple to be effective. The consequences of the battle rippled through the galaxy like waves in a cosmic pond. The empire that had dominated civilizations for millennia fell in a single day, defeated not by superior technology, but by the creative application of the most basic principles of physics. Stories began to spread. How the primitives of Earth had turned asteroids into weapons of mass destruction. How they had used the Votar's own arrogance against them. How they had proven that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. On Earth, as victory celebrations began, military leaders were already discussing the lessons learned. Humanity had proven its worth not just as warriors, but as strategists and innovators. The galaxy would never look at the dirtlings with disdain again. Instead, a new era was beginning, an era where creativity and adaptability were valued, as much as technological advancement. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, other civilizations began to realize a fundamental truth. Underestimating humanity was the first step toward their own destruction.